Hey everyone. So, welcome to My Rising Rose with me, Jack Morgan. You find me a little frustrated because I was just sat here for about half an hour, bearing my heart and soul, and then realised that I hadn't pressed the record button. So, that's time I'm not going to get back again. But anyway, so I wanted to thank everybody who was leaving messages in the comments after my last couple of videos. I've been bearing my soul a bit more. Things are really like clicking into place about who I am and what my purpose is. And I'm basically realizing that I'm supposed to be completely myself. And I'd felt that already when I started doing these videos, and even just when I started actually working professionally as a spiritual teacher, it was clear to me that my job was to be myself. But I was going to say I lost my way a little bit, and I don't want to paint myself in a light that isn't really true. It's not like I've been inauthentic. But I realized that to some extent I was kind of holding myself in a certain energy that I thought was the energy that I was supposed to be in, as a spiritual teacher. It's I need to kind of be this certain way. So just kind of leaning into the part of myself that's more like that. The part of myself that's kind of more soft, I think more maternal actually, and more kind of polite and professional. What I'm realizing is that actually that's not really the kind of person that I'm supposed to be. I'm supposed to be a trigger. I am supposed to trigger you, and I'm supposed to trigger people. Why? Because when that happens, you will see the truth of who you are. So I am here to be a guide through the underworld, because humanity is so in denial of the truth of its own shadows. And for each and every one of you that learns to meet and accept your shadows, that is going to be it's like a release of pressure. It's like one turn on this pressure valve of humanity's heart, and just let some pressure out. Because humanity is just trying to live in a lie. It's trying to live in this kind of delusional fantasy. And I think the spiritual scene is really, there's a lot of that. There's a lot of people trying to live in a delusional fantasy, and a lot of teachers selling it. There's a lot of teachers selling it. Feels good to say that. Feels good to be honest. I think this is something that I was sharing on the video that is now, which I never even created because I didn't press record. But I just wanted to share a little bit about my perspective as this new up and coming teacher in the spiritual scene, which whether people see me like that or not, I don't know. But that was kind of what's been happening over this year and last year. It was things were kind of blowing up a bit. I was starting to collaborate with this really big organization that represents some major names in the spiritual scene, some of the biggest names. So I was on their up and coming people, whatever, roster, and hiring business people to help support me as I'm growing, and just kind of, it felt like everything was becoming bigger. Some of you will question that, I imagine. You'll probably be like, well, if you're a spiritual teacher, you're not supposed to think like that. It's for myself, I've had these realizations about the nature of reality that are pretty unusual They don't fit into the mainstream way of seeing things. And I've integrated it so much that most people wouldn't like think that there was anything different about me. But I've had these realizations about the nature of consciousness, about our unity with this world and the cosmos, which are rare. Like, they're usually only spoken about in indigenous communities. And I know I've got an important voice to share in the evolution of humanity. And as it's really obvious, humanity is in a bit of a dire situation right now. So I'm pretty motivated to take up this role, to become this person that I've had my guides tell me for years is what I'm supposed to be. I'm supposed to be this teacher and this huge audience and all these different things. And then I'm like, okay. For a while I was like, oh, maybe I'm just delusional and like I'm kind of distorting what my guides are saying, or they're just telling me what I want to hear for some reason, blah, 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 blah. But then last year things was kind of picking up, and it's like, oh, okay, I mean, this organization works with these huge names. These people are definitely doing that. Like, okay, it's all kind of coming together. But I think what happened during that time was from somewhere, whether it was my own kind of expectations about what a spiritual teacher should look like, or whether I was picking up stuff from these new business people who were all around me, I started shifting a bit, and the focus stopped being me being myself and started being me being what my audience wants. You know, because this is what I wanted to share, right? Most of you will have no idea how much time and energy goes into the inner workings of the business side of the spiritual scene. Like, there are so many people who have careers and families like dependent upon them understanding what you want and then giving you that. It feels great to talk about this because I don't think it's spoken about enough, and I'm happy to be talking about it. I know not everyone's going to like me talking about this. Don't think the business people will like me talking about this, but the reality is that there are people out there who they want to know what you want so they can sell you things because they want your money, you know. And to some extent that's fine. It's a business, right? And to some extent, if we're in this world, we need to find our purpose and be able to make a living from that. So having a business is, in my opinion, completely compatible with having spiritual life and all of this. And I think there's kind of two different types of spiritual teachers where it comes to this. There's the spiritual teacher who is extremely business savvy, to the extent of it being worrying. And I've met teachers like this, and I'm thinking of one in particular who just seemed, who's pretty successful, I would say, and coming up really well, getting a lot of attention, going on like the big shows and everything. But meeting them in person, I was like, this person is like really shady. And a lot on an energetic level, very shady. Like there's a lot of, the bad dark, if we're going to use these kind of words, that about them. And seemed pretty obsessed with fame, like how to make it big. And there's a part of me that's like that, like just to be transparent. And I think that's part of what I've been learning this year, right? And there's this part of me that equates success with not necessarily fame, but certainly attention, like getting positive attention. Like I'm a human being, I suppose. And I think that's kind of this shadowy part of myself that has been illuminated to me over this year, which really in many ways has not gone well. Like from the start of this year, it's been a shit show. Not entirely, like there's lots of things that have been amazing, but overall, you know, it's been brutal for me. I'm sure it has been for many of you. I'm not trying to turn this into some kind of sob story, and I certainly don't want sympathy in the comments. I actually really don't like that. So I'm just like, I'm bearing my soul, not because I need help. This isn't a cry for help. It's actually me being powerful. That's how I view it. It's like I'm being transparent, and I'm being the person that I wish was more present in the spiritual scene. I think there's nowhere near enough spiritual teachers who are honest about this in the way that I'm being right here. And I assure you, many of them think about this stuff. So yeah, there's these very business savvy spiritual teachers. I can recognize some of that in myself. But then the other side is like people who are completely averse to it, which is more how I used to be. Completely averse to anything. Like, you can't combine business and spirituality. You can't have spiritual teachers earning like money. And I remember early on I came across this teacher who was like that, and he was like, oh yeah, I donate all of the proceeds from my book to like these orphan charities in India. And I remember thinking like, oh, that's really great, like that's how it should be. And then I found out, like, before he'd become a spiritual teacher, he worked for like this massive like American chemical company, and he was like a quite high-ranking CEO in that company. And I don't know how I found this out, but it was written somewhere that he earned like $250,000 a year while he was in this company, and he's retired now. So presumably he's extremely wealthy. And it's like, well, it's all well and good to say, oh, you know, I'm going to give away my however much money he was earning for this book. He wasn't a very big teacher, so I don't think he was earning a lot from this book. And it's like, you know, I'm going to give away this $1,000 to this orphan charity. Look what a great spiritual teacher I am. It's like, well, I don't know, maybe you should give them your millions that you have as well. If you really believe that, if that's really how you want to live your life, maybe you should do that. It's funny. I think there's a famous guy who did something similar. I mean, people don't like it when I say negative things about famous teachers, but I'm beyond the point of caring now. What was his name? He died a few years ago. I can't remember his name, but I just remember seeing him on the stage, and he was like, he had this like sort of energy of a Wayne Dyer. Some of you are going to hate me now because I'm saying something negative about someone that you think's amazing, but I thought he was full of shit, because he was like, he just seemed like he seemed pretty wealthy, and he was talking about giving away everything that he had, but what that actually meant was telling his assistant like to get rid of everything in his office because he was going to move to Maui with his son. It was this really weird story where he was selling it as if he was like this kind of they have a special name for it in India, but like this older man who has like given away all his worldly possessions and is now just kind of like wandering the world and has nothing, right? And he was kind of acting like that's what he was doing, but he went to move to Maui to live with his son. Like, isn't Maui it's like a really luxurious place, isn't it? That's how I picture it. Like, I was born in poverty. Like, I grew up in poverty, so like I don't know what. I haven't been to Maui. I couldn't afford to go there. Do you know what I mean? So like this guy acting like he's sort of this really noble guru. It's just like, come on, dude. If you just be honest. You wanted to leave your job and retire and go live in a beautiful, luxurious place with your family. okay, just say that. Don't act like you, I don't know, it's weird. So that, you know, there's that group of people who are kind of like acting like, I don't know, acting like they're poor when they're not. And there's like a group of people who, they're just kind of anti-business. And my teacher, Fran, was like this. You know, she was from a monastic background. She went into the monastery when she was in her early 20s. So spent most of her adult life in Christian monasteries. So obviously, like, not really kind of handling money and thinking of money as kind of, I don't know whether she would have admitted this or not, but quite ugly. I think she thought of money as something quite ugly and that it shouldn't be connected to spirituality. And sadly, like, that led to ultimately her death, because, you know, there's other factors at play, but she couldn't kind of create a business that worked well enough where she could spread the genuinely like amazing insights that she had. And like, she's like the closest spiritual teacher to me, who gave me so much, and I really feel that I'm a teacher in her lineage, and because she was very honest. But she really didn't have a good business head, and I think really kind of shot herself in the foot many times, and lost opportunities. So she didn't have enough money, sadly then became homeless. She got evicted from her home, and she lived in the US, and was dependent on the US healthcare system. She had diabetes and couldn't afford her medication. Like, there's a few question marks about this, like exactly what happened, but the official story that I heard was that she couldn't afford her, or she wasn't taking her diabetes medication. It might have involved her not being able to afford it. And then she died from complications of diabetes. So that's the real world. That's the real world that we're living in. You know, we're not living in some kind of fantasy land where if you have a spiritual awakening, then everything just suddenly turns out absolutely perfect. Like, that's not the real world. The real world calls for us to be united within the spiritual and physical dimensions. And one way to do that as a spiritual teacher is to have some kind of business model. And I think there's a healthy way to do that, and ways that feel right. It's going to vary from person to person exactly what that looks like. I'm really glad that I'm talking about this, by the way, because I don't think I've ever heard a spiritual teacher talk about this, and I think it's really important to be transparent with all of you about the realities of what this is like. You know, stepping into this world, it's pretty crazy to do this. I mean, for me, like, I just created a business out of from scratch. And because, like, Spirit's telling me to do it, and then I'm following it, and then I don't want to do it, and I try and do something else, and then it won't let me. It's just like, nah, you have to do this. And that meant going through a lot of poverty, having years where I didn't know where I was going to afford rent for next month, or food even at times. It was incredibly stressful to go through that. It was necessary, like, it matured me in certain ways, but I'm glad I'm not in that now. But I mean, who knows what the future could bring? Could come back. I could maybe I would say something controversial and people don't like it, and I lose my audience and no one buys any of my courses. You know, I'm taking a risk at the moment. I'm, again, because I was called to by Spirit, to stop doing Dragon Medicine Live. If I was just thinking about business and finances and all I wanted was stability, I would have just kept doing Dragon Medicine Live. People were really interested in it. And that's what the business people around me wanted me to do. You're the dragon guy, be the dragon guy. But they weren't saying that, like, directly, but I could tell, like, when I started talking about wanting to do something else, they were like, I felt the energy, this contracted, like, he doesn't understand business. doesn't understand how this works. And I'm like, you don't understand that the business that I have created is on my authenticity. I'm not getting really annoyed about it. It's about following my heart. But I think this is just a diary entry, I guess. So don't expect a perfectly coherent argument here. Like, I am aware how, in some ways, how unstable my position is. And I think any of you who are a private business owner know this. Like, there's always, in the back of my mind, this sense of like, it could all be gone tomorrow. You know, there's no boss who's paying my salary. I've got no protections. I'm just living my life, and it's all on me. Like, I have to create something that people want, or I don't have an income. Like, it's as simple as that. And that's difficult in many ways. And what it can do is it can evoke a sense of fear, which is, I feel that in my root chakra, and a contraction, which can lead to, for me, relatively minor, but still, not inauthenticities, I really don't think that's the right word, but like leaning into what I know is like safe and what works, you know, what I think is gonna give a positive response. Like, because I feel this real pressure, like I need to grow my channel, I need to grow my YouTube channel, partly because of things that have happened this year where I've like had opportunities and started collaborating with certain groups, and then really snaky people come in because I've triggered their shadows, and then they actively work to destroy those opportunities. And it literally happens. Like, I was going to be working with this big company, it's not happening anymore, to be completely honest. But my opinion of that is that there was one person in particular who was, I think, really afraid that I would reveal who they are, the truth of who they are, and used their contacts in that organization to destroy the opportunities that I had. And that's just like the reality of the situation. You know, I'm someone who is trying to actively call out the collective shadows of humanity. So I can't be too surprised when those collective shadows make use of people to try and silence me. That just makes total sense. And I'm not alone in that. You know, that happens to a lot of people. So the reason I'm talking about it is because that's then put a pressure on me to grow this channel. Because I'm like, I need to do that because I can't be dependent on these outside groups, because the people who are in them haven't, you know, they haven't done the work that I've done. Like, to be completely blunt, they're just a bunch of business people, really. Like, maybe they've gone on an ayahuasca retreat or something. They're not like deeply spiritually evolved people who have done years of integration work, working through their shadows, like truly just like fallen off the cliff of life and being just ripped apart and humbled over and over again. Like, that's what I've gone through for 12 years. And it's forged me in fire. These people who are these business people who have a really powerful role in what you see spiritually, you know, the spiritual teachers that get promoted, there's certain people who play the game. You know, there's this like kind of sickness in it, and they're not they're not like legit evolved people. They're just people. And I don't think they're worthy of that position. So what can I do about that? Well, I take the power back into my own hands. I build this channel into something big. That was my idea. It's like, I think in my head it has to be big so that my message gets out there, reach enough people, and I earn a living. You know, I'm planning on starting a family soon. You know, people are going to be financially dependent on me, and to some extent already are. So, you know, these are pressures. These are things that I have to think about. This is the reality of being a human being, spiritual teacher or not. But what I've realized recently is that actually the size of my audience doesn't matter. I mean, it'd be nice if it was big. I'm not going to lie. I would like that. But the main thing is actually the quality of the people. That's the main thing. So I've been doing a few videos recently. I've just been trying to try out new things. And just kind of, I feel like I'm changing and I'm trying to find my voice and how I want to do these videos. So I was doing these reaction ones. I did one reaction one about Byron Katie. Some people did not like it. And actually that video was okay. I've been doing a few videos and I've been noticing that the views are dropping. And sometimes I'd put out a video and just suddenly lose 10 subscribers, like just after it's gone live. And it's like, bearing in mind everything I've just shared with you, it's a bit of a kick in the balls. It's like, it's not working. Oh, maybe all my fears are true. Maybe everything's doomed. I'm not gonna, I'm gonna go back to poverty, which is where I've come from. That's a fear that's in my mind. I was like, that doesn't feel good. Until I did that Byron Katie video. And for some reason, I literally just woke up in the morning and I just did not worry about it. There's no explanation for it. I can't explain it. Just woke up in the morning and it was like, I just feel at peace with it. Not like absolutely totally, not like head in the clouds kind of thing, but just significantly more at peace. That helped me to see that actually there are more important things than how many subscribers I have, and that isn't who I'm supposed to be. So I don't know what the overall point I'm trying to make is. I think I just want to share this with you all. I just want to get it off my chest. This stuff's been on my mind for ages. And it's like I want to talk about it, and I can go way more in depth and I can name names. I'm just worried about the backlash. I'm worried about the potential implications of that. And it's like, I guess I feel like I have to remain silent, otherwise I'll lose opportunities. And those opportunities could provide safety for me long term. But honestly, I don't think that's who I'm supposed to be. I'm supposed to be rebellious, and I'm supposed to point out what's going on wrong in the scene. And I know that some of you won't like it. In fact, most of you who won't like it won't be at this point in the video. So I assume that everyone who's still here is pretty much, to some extent, on board with what I'm saying. I just think there need to be more voices that are calling out the bullshit in the spiritual scene. There we go. I am one of those voices. There we go. That's the truth. That's the truth that I'm starting to understand about myself and who I'm supposed to be. It's not like who I'm supposed to be. I've always been like this. In private, this is what I'm like. Like I showed Lola, who is, if you follow the channel, you know that's my partner. I showed her my Byron Katie video, and she was like, "This is the most authentic video you've ever done." Basically that's what she said anyway. And I was like, yeah, that's what I thought. People don't like it. Well, like the first few comments that I got, they, people were saying I'm unkind, which inspired my previous video about the tyranny of kindness. What I'm trying to say is that I think I'm ready to take up the role of the rebellious spiritual teacher and call out the bullshit. So if that's not what you want, then do us all a favor and go, because I don't want your manipulative comments and your little love and light bullshit trying to make me small and all that crap. Just stay here if this is actually what you want. You know, we live in this weird world where like people will go onto somebody's video and then tell them that you think it's a rubbish video. It's like, if you don't like it, stop watching it. You know, not everything is for you. So if this isn't for you, you don't like what I'm saying, you don't have to try and force yourself to like it. Go somewhere else. There's plenty of love and light teachers you can, you know, get your delusional fix from. Go over there. You don't have to leave me passive aggressive or manipulative comments. And yeah, it's time for me to fully accept this role. So that is what I'm going to do. Thanks for listening. See you again soon.